When Mr. Trump meets Capitol Hill, joining us now is Republican Indiana Congressman Todd Rokita, who's also a member of the Budget Committee and deals with infrastructure. Congressman, good to see you. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, let me ask you about the appointments today. First, Reince Priebus as Chief of Staff.
Well, I couldn't have made a better choice. You know, Reince has done a great job. It was very good work. He was very good in working with Mr. Trump, very good in working with Mr. Bannon, the other appointment today. And so, what I expect from a Reince Priebus as an ability is in addition to Paul Ryan, really, for a member of Congress. Now we have two folks who can transmission to Mr. Trump back and forth, and that's very important. What I mean by that, Eric, is that in Wisconsin, it's a very liberal state, and Reince and Paul are from that state, and they're able to message conservative ideas in that state very successfully, and I think that kind of messaging can help Mr. Trump, help this rank-and-file Republican, many rank-and-file Republicans message in their districts as well.
Well, that's had been some of the criticism that they're such good friends. I mean, some folks, especially Tea Party folks, think that Mr. Priebus is too much of a DC insider and all that.
Well, look, I mean, Washington is what Washington is, and just like when I came to Washington from the outside, I picked a chief of staff who was an insider, not that it was going to rub off on me, but that I could work the system better for my constituents, and I think that's exactly what Mr. Trump's going to do. I thought it was a great choice.
Steve Bannon, he's the chief strategist, senior counsel. Look, he is a Harvard-educated former investment banker, Navy vet, but, has also been under fire for what critics have called a right-wing alt-right site that they say has been marked with racist, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic articles and headlines. And the rap against him tonight from critics is that it's not appropriate for him to be in the White House. What do you say?
Well, I think the critics, what the critics are really saying is inappropriate, is that it's inappropriate for a conservative to be in the White House, and that's all he is. He's not attached to any anti-Muslim thoughts or plans or anything like that. But what conservatives really want is to be a nation of law again. We are all equal under the law. That's how it's supposed to be. And the law is above all of us, and the law is even above the government. And for so long now, for at least 8 years, we've been seeing that the government plays favorites. Look at the IRS investigations versus what they don't investigate. Look at what the FBI has done over the last year.
But do you think Bannon is too controversial, too slash and burn, too extremist for the White House?
No, not at all. It's certainly not for rank-and-file House Republicans, I don't think, who want, look, we have bills piling up. We have a product to give this president to sign and get into law, and I think Mr. Bannon is going to help us do that.
Talk about bills. You're vice chair of the Budget Committee, and also you deal with infrastructure. And those are the two main points. So the $1 trillion, do you think the Congress is really going to approve and appropriate $1 trillion of what Mr. Trump wants to spend on infrastructure, which is double what Hillary Clinton was proposing during the campaign?
Well, that's right, and it may have to be phased in over time. What we are committed to do is making sure it's paid for. So whether that's reducing some of our social entitlement program outlays, reforming those so that they're around for the next generation, because right now, Social Security, Medicare, even Medicaid won't be around for the next generation. So if we reform those programs, there's more than enough money to do everything else that needs to be done. Infrastructure is an investment.
Do you think Mr.
So it's going to be around for the next generation.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you think, though, Mr. Trump would, is going to push back on that? Because he's not typical traditional Republican philosophy in some things. He's vowed no cuts in Medicaid or Social Security.
Yeah, but as a businessman, he can read a spreadsheet. He knows numbers, and once these are presented, any reasonable person who loves this country has to come to the same conclusion. And that is that the $20 trillion in debt that we have right now are really the result of three programs, the ones I just mentioned. And that's the $20 trillion, unbelievably, is not even the issue. It's the $120 trillion that's going to come over the next 25 years or so. So, what I see Mr. Trump as is the big idea guy. He gives direction, he's going to have some parameters, and we have experts, not that we are know-it-alls, but we have so much experience in the different committees in Congress. We can give him products along those parameters on any given subject. And that's what I see our role being. I mean, we have product that we can pile up on his desk that he can sign that would, for the most part, to any reasonable voter or taxpayer, be the the completion of a campaign promise. So we're ready to go. We have the stuff. We've been trying to get things to the president's desk for years now, and now we have a real opportunity. The last thing we should do is be bashful. We need to be bold right now, and I'm going to enjoy partnering with Mr. Trump and Mr. Pence to get all that stuff done.
Well, you know, finally, something that's kind of fascinating and interesting in terms of management style. We saw Jimmy Carter, you know, who apparently micromanaged everything, even dealing with the tennis court scheduling times. Yet here you have Donald Trump, who gets in there with his business, but we're being told could be more like a chairman of the board. What do you think we'll see, and how would that be different from what we have now?
Well, from my understanding about Mr. Reagan, he led a lot like that. He gave the broad brushstrokes, the parameters, and then we had great people around him. He trusted them to get things done, but he also had that trust but verify mood, and that's how I see Mr. Trump being. You know, he'll give some ideas, he'll give some broad parameters based on these reasonable campaign promises that he made, and then I will attempt to give him product that meets those goals. Certainly not bankrupting the country anymore, though, in doing it.
All right, Congressman Todd Rokita of the Hoosier State of Indiana, we thank you for joining us tonight. We know on your outbox in your desk, I'm sure it's going to be like this. You got another 2 months, and it'll go down to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, I can't wait.
Thank you for joining us tonight.